On June 18th, 2026, the DOJ Office of Legal Counsel released an opinion memo on the disability integration mandate. This was written by Lenore Petrit, Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Legal Counsel. This was issued in response to questions from the White House counsel. Um, Now, this is the legal position of the United States government. The memo makes three arguments, all framed around people with mental health disabilities, although we'll see later that it doesn't really restrict itself to just people with mental disabilities. Neither Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act nor Title II of the ADA imposed an integration mandate on states. If such a mandate did exist, it would raise constitutional concerns about Congress's power. There's a case called Olmstead versus LC, which did not require states to serve people with mental health disabilities in the most integrated setting appropriate. The memo's reading of this ruling is that Olmstead, quote, held only that a state cannot institutionalize such patients without justification, and, quote, what counts as adequate justification remains an open question. So this is basically the memo's own admission. Um, Another glaring admission, quote, we recognize that this view of Olmsted's import is out of step with the common understanding of that decision within the federal courts. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So this memo, which purports to be official legal positions held by the United States government, is saying we have no precedent for this. I think they might be right, and I don't really think they care. And of course, this particular memo is purported to address only people with mental health disabilities, but don't really think that's the case. Disability advocates state that it cannot be contained just there. American Council of the Blind says the memo is, quote, functionally attacking the rights of all individuals with disabilities to live in their communities without fear of institutionalization. The American Council of the Blind, I should note, is a leading blindness organization in the country. It represents uh, a good number of blind individuals. The Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law said that the department's views, quote, apply not just to people with mental health disabilities, but sweep in the entire disability community. The integration mandate is the right of a person with a disability to receive services in the most integrated setting appropriate to their needs. And clearly, the United States government wants to end this, and we'll get to why here in a moment. This memo doesn't really change anything. Um, Congress can only change the law, well, and the Supreme Court, but this memo is written to give states and municipalities and whatnot guidance, legal guidance. And if places uh, refuse to enforce this Olmstead case, um, people with disabilities have less rights than they did before. Um, and if the government uses this memo as guidance to treat disability related cases, uh, their rights won't be enforced. And that's absolutely chilling. Um, this is a signal. It's a signal for DOJ to stop the Olmstead enforcement and HHS. Um, because this is what legal counsel has advised them to do. It has advised them to stop caring about Section 504 and stop caring about the ADA so that they can basically do whatever the hell they want. Um, and this is also going to it's going to impact, cases that are disability related or any sort of investigation right now. And you know, it could see a lot of dropped cases in the near future that are disability related. And that's scary and terrible. For example, the integration mandate is currently at issue in a live case called Texas versus Kennedy. And that could end too, you know? And this pattern of undermining the rights of people with disabilities has been going on for a while. This is just another instance of it. On July 24th, 2025, a Trump executive order on homelessness, whose stated solution is involuntary institutionalization through civil commitment to, quote, restore public order. So they're basically forcing people to go off the streets and into institutions, even if they're not disabled, if they're just homeless. Um, on July 4th, 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, H.R. 1, drained the funding that states use for the home-based alternative caps and freezes that provide taxes to states who fund these Medicaid programs. It cuts the allowable rate in expansion states from 6% to 3.5% by 2032. It limits states' directed payments in Medicaid managed care and home and community-based services, HBCS, are, an optional Medicaid benefit and make up over half of all optional Medicaid spending. So they're going to be first to be cut if funding goes away. And this happened during the Great Recession. Every state had to cut HBCS um, because there just wasn't enough money in the till. The federal government has held since 1977 that federal law includes an integration mandate. Every single administration has since enforced it, Republican and Democratic people, even the first Trump administration. So this is quite different. And I just wonder, I guess we have different people in the Office of Legal Counsel than we used to, people who are more willing to push the envelope when it comes to established uh, precedent, especially when it comes to like the rights of people who are marginalized. I mean, they've basically already gutted the Voting Rights Act. It wouldn't be a surprise if the Supreme Court decided that they were going to gut rights of disability, people with disabilities too, you know? And this is a scary, scary thing, just to look at how inhumane it is. Um, you know, people with disabilities were forced to live in institutions. A lot of these places were dirty and overcrowded. They were subject to, eugenics and were forced to be sterilized and all sorts of things. SA ran rampant in these places. Um, and, you know, this could happen again. Um, the case that I brought up earlier, Olmstead versus LC, the origin was Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson. They were two women with mental disabilities. They were held in a Georgia state hospital even after the state's own professionals said they could live in the community on their own. Their case reached the Supreme Court in 1999 and established that unjustified institutional isolation is a form of discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The court recognized a, quote, right to live in the world. And, I think that's absolutely right. Um, and, all that the Trump people are doing is resurrecting a very old argument that disabled people, regardless of their disability, honestly, they're just targeting people with mental health disabilities, but that disabled people aren't valuable if they're not uh, working, even if they are working, they're not valuable because they're disabled. It costs too much to employ them. It costs too much resources to keep uh, feeding them, to keep letting them, take money from the public coffers. Even if getting traditional employment would affect them negatively, it doesn't matter. You know, I have seen that attitude play out in my own life in um, the private university setting. There are a lot of guardrails in places like where I went to school that limit people's ability to work within the system. And, they almost forced me out. And a lot of people who are part of those private institutions, they want to enforce that mentality on the rest of us. Uh, you know, and this is why so many people in the disabled community are so afraid of things like assisted suicide, or voluntary euthanasia, as some people may want to call it, because they're afraid, and rightfully so, that it's going to be used as an option to try and limit the gene pool, because there are people, especially now in the United States government, who actively want that to happen. You know, and personally, for me, it strikes to an even deeper chord because, it affects our culture. People who are disabled aren't allowed to enjoy some of the same things that their peers can. They're not allowed to be romantic partners. They're not allowed to enjoy pleasure in the same way. They're not allowed to have an equal voice, or to cook, or to clean, or to not do those things if maybe they have mobility limitations or executive functioning issues, like I do. I have executive functioning issues. Um, those people don't deserve to have equal rights because they don't meet the standard of what it means to be human that these non-disabled, mostly straight, white, you know, cis male people think constitutes a human being. I have found that even trying to meet people, going into a room with all non-disabled people or non-disabled presenting people can be very hard. Uh, because if you have a visible disability, you stand out. And it's made my misanthropy come out in waves, let me tell you. So, you know, but that is what we've been teaching our kids for generation after generation, that disabled people aren't worth keeping alive because they're not able to do what we as a culture think they should do. And luckily, we have even more voices than we used to. Zoe Brennan Crone, director of the ACLU's Disability Rights Program, said Trump's Justice Department cannot erase federal laws and decades of legal precedent with a single opinion. She added, the DOJ's statement is wrong on the law and does not change the rights of disabled people. The right to live in the community is foundational to disability rights law. We won't stop fighting to protect it. Um, Alison Barkoff, George Washington University professor who led HBCS administration under Biden's watch, um, she said, the Department of Justice's memo attempts to take away one of the most important and hard-fought rights for people with disabilities, the right to receive services in their own homes and communities. Jennifer Mathis, deputy director of the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law, says a federal agency cannot change the law. Only Congress can do that. So while this new position is likely to have a significant impact in the government's own Olmstead matters, states will put themselves at significant risk if they treat DOJ's memo as a change in the law. And of course, we know a bunch of red states probably will, because, screw disabled people, right? You don't need those people. They're just a drain on the system. They won't say it out loud, but they mean it. And, Jennifer Mathis got one thing wrong. Congress could change the law and the Supreme Court can change the law if we allow them to. A constitutional amendment can change the law, but there's no goddamn way in hell that's going to ever happen. And, we have something that's called aging. Aging is a universal disability that affects everybody. And I know people don't want to say that because they don't think it's true, but it is. People's sight fails, their hearing fails, their teeth fall out, their sense of smell goes, their mobility goes, their balance goes. If that's not a disability, I don't know what the hell is. And I think a lot of people like to sort of delineate between those of us who have disabilities for our entire lives and those of us who get disabilities later in life because of things like aging. Or hell, somebody might get struck blind in their 30s because of cancer or something. Are you going to tell me those people's lives are not worth it? Because they could be your family members. I'm talking to you, right-wingers. And you're going to tell me you're going to cut Medicaid for them? Make them live in institutions? I'll tell you one thing right now, and I am not overstating. I would rather die than be a part of an institution. No questions asked. That's where I stand right now and when I get older. And there ain't no goddamn way the Trump administration is going to round me up. I can tell you that. We have to fight with our whole hearts on this one. And, you know, for those of you who live in red states, if you're able to do so, call your representatives. Try to appeal to their sense of decency. Those who are in blue states, we can do stuff too. We can call our red representatives in our states or other representatives in other states to try to pressure them to make sure that this kind of crap doesn't get adopted by any state whatsoever. At any rate, that's going to do it for me. I've got the social media and TikTok and Instagram and an email. If you'd like to follow me on there or reach me on there, I would greatly appreciate it. Hope that you like and subscribe. It means the world to me. So that's it. Until next time, thanks for watching.